Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and thank you so much for their support recently in these last couple videos. All the support's been phenomenal. So thank you very much for liking. All your comments and the debates in the comments have been great. It actually is kind of what sparked this video. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on this one. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disagreements, so I'd be happy to further dive into certain scenarios regarding the ninth pick in the comments. So feel free to comment down there. I'd love to continue talking with you guys about it. But this is going to be on what I believe we should do with the ninth pick. And it sounds like from, reading Twitter and my comment section and Instagram and all over, my opinion seems to be oddly differing from most other Bears fans. So let me know what you think of it. I want to talk about the offensive line first. So why don't we pull up, let me get to some stats here and we'll talk about that. All right, so obviously when people are talking about picking offensive line, I feel like most people are mentioning drafting a tackle. Well, the reason that I've selected Braxton Jones in this particular case is because we just drafted Darnell Wright, and I would assume that most fans are not thinking about passing on him yet. They probably just want some big name out of the draft to be their generational left tackle. Well, let me tell you a little about Braxton Jones. These are 2023 stats per ESPN. So we got, who's that? In the offensive tackle pass block win rate. That's Braxton Jones at number 5. So of all tackles, this is not just left tackles, not just right tackles. Braxton Jones is at number 5 in the entire NFL for pass block win rate. Well, Jerry, what's a pass block win rate? How do they track that? I'll tell you. They use, so it's anytime the lineman holds their man for 2.5 seconds. They call that a win. And as you can see here, Braxton Jones has had 281 opportunities and won 260 of them. Again, just holding him to 2.5 seconds. Justin Fields does hold the ball longer than any other player in the league. So naturally, there was a lot of sacks generated by the quarterback. And that is just the proof here. For all the people that think we need to bolster the offensive line, this is a very reasonable amount of time that he's holding them for. And I know all the Justin Fields lovers love to comment on Caleb Williams and how long he holds the ball, because it actually is very similar to Justin Fields, and I understand that. But the one thing that I've seen that's different is Caleb Williams does have that ability to throw the ball quickly and on time. The bad habit that he has is trying to hold on to the ball too long and try to get this deep ball big play. And that is a habit he would have to break. But I would take the opportunity of him being able to do that than Justin Fields learning how to pull the trigger and just not being afraid to throw the ball, because that's what happens with Justin Fields is he would get afraid to throw the ball. He holds on to it long, and sometimes he's able to break free. A lot of times he gets sacked, more than any other quarterback in the league, specifically over 4 seconds as well, which is way too long. To be holding on to the ball, Justin Fields typically needs to see the receiver open. But this isn't about Justin Fields. That just comes up because we're talking about the O-line and all the people that want the O-line to have help, specifically drafting a tackle is what I've heard a lot of, and specifically being a left tackle because a right tackle was just drafted very high, and I don't think anybody was hating on how he played. And now I'm just showing you that Braxton Jones has been doing his job near the top, better than most tackles, and near the top of where he should be. Then move on to run block. He's 6th. So we know that, and that's again all tackles. So I don't understand why people think that, Braxton Jones should be moved to a swing tackle. He's been performing like one of the best in the league. Obviously, he was injured that little bit, and that's why his plays are down a little bit from some other guys, but he's still in the middle. You see 216, 219, 183. There's plenty of lower numbers down there. So I think Braxton Jones is just fine, and I see no reason whatsoever to move on from Braxton Jones just to say that you drafted a quarterback and some other, left tackle to take care of his blind side for years to come, because I think Braxton Jones has already proved it in the NFL as a 5th-round pick. So I think that pretty much rules that out there. And then if you just want to talk about offensive line in general, okay, talk about it. Team win rate rankings. Now, don't pay attention to the pass rush win rate and run stop win or run. It's a running run. We'll call it a uh, run rush. I don't know what it is. Whatever that one. Those two on the left don't matter. It's pass block win rate and run block win rate are the ones that matter. Where are the Chicago Bears ranked? Oh, fifth for their entire line. So every single player is judged every play on if they hold their guy for 2.5 seconds. And the Bears are the fifth ranked across the board. Yes, the center sucks, and we know that. But the guards and the tackles seem to be making up for that because we were ranked fifth. And that's not some bogus, like some AI is doing the calculations. It is still a bona fide stat where the player is holding their guy for 2.5 seconds on a pass play. Run block win rate, where are we at? Oh, we're second in the whole NFL. But all these people are like, oh, the offensive lines need so much help. I'm telling you right now, it's because of Justin Fields. Let's look at the time to throw. Oh, 2022, 3.45 seconds. That's not first as in the best. That's first as in the highest. That is the longest time to throw. I know that's labeled a little backwards. It should say last. In 2022 and 2023, he ranked last in time to throw. Now you can say, oh, well, Jerry, he's able to escape the pocket and make all these amazing moves. And, oh, well, he was also last in pocket time. So he was standing in the pocket longer than any other quarterback that qualified. There was some that only threw 40 passes or something that had like a 3 second. But those don't count. I believe the stat, he was last on 200 pass attempts or more. So last, let's just go with that. Last, time to throw, pocket time, both years. And I understand. We'll get to Caleb Williams. Yes, he takes a long time to throw the ball too. Again, I already mentioned that he has the ability to throw a quick pass, and I think that is something that's coachable. And if he can just understand that cocky play style where thinks he's so good that he can make these big plays and doesn't have to worry about the quick passes, I'm hoping that he can learn that. And I think that even if he doesn't learn that, I think his ability to throw the ball and keep his eyes downfield while maneuvering the pocket and, running around, I think it's still significantly better than Justin's, to where his passing statistics will still be better despite having that longer throw time, because most people have agreed that he is one of the best improvisational guys out of college as far as, what he's able to do with the football. So I just wanted to provide those stats for all the people that think that offensive line is the biggest need. Now, I could listen to center. If you're telling me that we're trading back between like 16 and 19 or something, I guess if you think you could get him later to do that, but 16 and 19 and taking Jackson Powers Johnson, I would be perfectly fine with that. I'm not opposed to it. I still wouldn't prefer to do that over, a wide receiver or an edge rusher. I think those are definitely the two highest needs. But I'm just trying to highlight here to all the people in the comments who are like, we need to take Joe Alt or we need to take Olu Fashanu. Like, I just don't see how that even makes any sense at all, because you're either replacing Braxton Jones or Darnell Wright. We drafted Darnell Wright at 10 last year and was fine. He wasn't, this Hall of Fame right tackle so far, but he was fine. And then Braxton Jones had a career year and was ranked top 5 in pass block and run block win rate. So I don't, or 6, I guess, in run block. So I don't see the point to it. Again, I'm okay with Jackson Powers Johnson. It just doesn't make sense, with how well he performed. And as we see here, the Bears offensive line ranked 5th in pass block win rate and run block win rate. But that's it. I just needed to show these statistics because I think it was getting out of hand, and I wanted to be able to show these in a video to all the people in the comment section that were saying we absolutely need to prioritize offensive line. So as you can see, I really don't understand how offensive line can be so many people's number one priorities with the statistics that we were able to look at, specifically, as we mentioned, with how Braxton Jones is doing at left tackle. Everybody's said they don't need a right tackle. And I can listen for center. I understand the Jackson Powers Johnson sort of thing. I think it depends on where other picks go in a trade back. So let's get into wide receivers. So we've had a bit of a change, and it's actually, I think this is another thing that's benefiting the Bears. Not like in the Falcons video, not Falcons video, but the video in regards to the Falcons pick and what could happen. Go check that one out if you haven't. But In that video, we talked about how valuable it could be if the Bears were able to move up a spot because they're just going to have a larger pick at the litter of greatly talented human beings that are in this draft. So if we look at Marvin Harrison Jr., everybody kind of said he was for sure going forward to the Cardinals. And I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of this talk could be smoke. I still think he does go for, but there is talk saying that the Cardinals would also be open to trading out. I think they probably understand too that there's a lot of people that want to trade up for quarterbacks. It's looking like 4 of the top 5 picks could be quarterbacks. The Chargers have also exhibited their want to trade back. Same thing with the Patriots. But this is all good news for the Bears. In a perfect world, we take Caleb or whoever they think is the best, probably Caleb, first overall, and then the other 5 quarterbacks all get taken because then we're going to have an insane pick at all the talent, basically whoever we want, for the 9th pick. So I think for wide receiver in this area where it's been pretty clear that the first 4 were going to be up until this last week, it was going to be Caleb, May, Daniels, Marv in that order. And I don't know what's going to happen now, but if you continue to follow through with that, there's talk of the Chargers being okay with trading out if somebody wants to trade up for presumably JJ McCarthy at this point. There's also talks of people potentially wanting to trade up for a wide receiver. I don't believe the Bears should trade up. I think trading up would be a waste of a pick, especially if we get to 5 and the first one goes off the board. I don't see the Falcons taking one, and the Giants do probably take one, but I also don't really see the Titans taking one because they have Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. So looking at that, I mean, there's a very good chance that there could be 2 wide receivers left at the 9th pick, or there could even be, just the 1 left. Either way, it's looking more and more likely that there's going to be a wide receiver left. I'll bring up Brock Bowers. I was originally very interested in Brock Bowers just because of how important the 2 tight end set is, or the 21 personnel is for Shane Waldron. So originally I was very high on that. I'm kind of losing that idea. I don't know if I would like it as much unless we're somehow going to use him as a receiver, or I just don't know if he fits in as well, especially because I think Gerald Everett's a great other fit for a tight end 2. I think he's probably a tight end 1 on a few teams, and Cole Kmet I think is phenomenal. So between those, I don't see Brock Bowers as great of a pick anymore. Could listen to it, but I'm not super high on that anymore. But as far as Neighbors and Odunze, like I said, I think both of them could be there, and I think you're in a position where you could stick and pick and take one of those there. And I think the good reasoning behind that would be Keenan Allen is technically only with us for a year. So if they don't sign him to an extension, which in my perfect world, they would sign him to like a 2-year extension, giving him 3 years with Caleb Williams, help, maybe a younger, later drafted receiver learn as a very smart receiver and a very talented receiver in a lot of different facets. So I think I could listen to Neighbors and Odunze. I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. And I think that would be a fine option. Although that's not my number 1 option. I'm not upset if we end up with Neighbors or Odunze. If we end up going way back and end up with like a Brian Thomas or something, I'd probably be pretty bummed, especially if, if we had the option to take him, him being like Neighbors or Odunze, if we had the option to take one of those at 9 and then we traded back and whatever their plan was fell through, and then we had to reach on a receiver, I definitely would be upset about that. But if we end up with Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, I can listen to it. The reason that I just don't think it is the greatest option is because, like I said, I think it would make sense to sign Keenan Allen to a 2-year deal. Him and Caleb get along really well, and Keenan Allen's a phenomenal football player. He had one of his best seasons last year, so anybody that's complaining that he's getting old, yeah, there's football players that still play well when they're old. Specifically wide receivers, too. Let's talk about Larry Fitzgerald. Still played well when he was old. Randy Moss. Obviously these are like top-tier receivers. Even Mike Evans. I think they're around the same age, Mike Evans might be a year or two later. There's plenty of receivers that have played well late in their career. I'm missing Jerry Rice. You can think of all the names. There's plenty that can play well. I think you should get a 2-year extension personally. But the reason that I don't think that wide receiver is the best is because you're getting a wide receiver 3 in, again, what I mentioned, the offense ran the highest percentage of any coach in the NFL, highest percentage of 21 personnel, where there's 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back. So I will ask you this. Who is going to sit, because I believe JSN, I think he got like high 30s, low 40% of the snap shares with being on the Seahawks. He was the wide receiver 3 that they drafted in the first round, first off the board, or one of the first, if I'm remembering correctly, but didn't get a whole lot of usage out of him. And I believe he had like 600 yards, wasn't insanely effective for a rookie. I'm sure he'll be fine moving forward. It probably also opens them up to the possibilities of, moving on from Lockett or DK Metcalf. I just don't think that that's going to be... So also, let's talk about this. He's probably the second or third wide receiver off the board. We're going to probably have the ability to take the first or the second edge rusher off the board. Now, if the way the board falls and it ends up being, Dallas Turner and Jared Verse for some reason go off, I wouldn't say reach and take Latu at 9, of course. But it's just not looking like that's going to happen. It looks like it's going to be a very offensive heavy first probably 7 picks. They should realistically all be offense. Titans need to bolster their offensive line. We already talked. We pretty much know the first 4 picks. Chargers are almost guaranteed taking a receiver or trading out and allowing that team to probably take a quarterback. Then you've got the Giants at 6, who probably could take a quarterback or likely should take a receiver, some sort of offensive person. They probably don't need, they won't need a tackle. So I guess you could go defense there. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it being very likely. And then, you get back to, we're at 9, then you have 10, you have the Jets, who they could go defense, might go offensive line. They did address a lot of the offensive line issues in the offseason, but just where everything is, I think it's going to be very offensive heavy. And I think the Bears could have the ability to pick the first defensive player off the board, where if you look at what happened with CJ Stroud last year, they take him at 2, and then they trade up to 3 to get Will Anderson because they wanted the best defensive player in the draft. Well, the Bears have the opportunity to take Caleb Williams and potentially get Dallas Turner or Jared Verse, who I actually have very close. I think Jared Verse might even be a better fit for the Bears as far as, the 4-3 scheme that they run. Big, powerful, one of the highest bench presses ever for an edge rusher at the very least. 31 reps is huge. He's huge. He's like 6'4", 250, 260. Still ran a 4.5, 840. Everybody likes to talk about Dallas Turner's phenomenal combine, which you have to highlight that too, because Dallas Turner has insanely long arms for his size, which my worry with the Bears taking Dallas Turner originally was his size. He was listed at like 6'2", 240, and maybe 245 or whatever he was. And yes, he had these long arms, but he was much more of a finesse, kind of like Micah Parsons, like could drop back into coverage sometimes, or be a successful edge rusher. But then you have Jared Verse, who's listed at 6'4", 250, still has long arms. But then we end up at the combine, and Dallas Turner ends up being 6'3", 250 with, still has these massive arms. Definitely still not as strong as Jared Verse, but absolutely still a weapon as far as his 4.46 speed, his 40-inch vertical, and just ridiculous combine performance. So my number 1 pick that I think the Bears should take is, and this is, I think it should be Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. I think if I just had to pick a safe, like pretty much guarantee he's going to be there, if there's a player the Bears should take, for me it would be Jared Verse, because I think there's a good possibility Dallas Turner could be off the board. I think Dallas Turner is probably a little bit better, looking at just the physicals are kind of nuts when it comes to him. Not that a defensive lineman necessarily needs to be able to jump high. That's not really a very important trait. But maybe for swatting down balls, I'm sure you can think of reasons that you would need that. But I think Jared Verse, as far as being this big, powerful defensive end, you pair him up with Montez Sweat for the next 3 years, you have absolute weapons on either side of the defensive line that the Bears haven't really had in a while. Where it's significant production from both sides. Not to say that we know, one of these edge rushers is going to be great, but this is looking like a good class. So what I would hope happens is, if the Bears have the pick at the 3, like they're 3 different edge rushers, they want Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, or Laiatu Latu. I think if you're in that position, you trade back, try to accumulate a second, go back 4 or 5 picks, and then take your pick of the litter. Because I'm actually, like I said, I'm very close on Jared Verse and Dallas Turner. And if you got unlucky enough to where you missed out on both of them because you traded back too far, but you acquire a second, I would be okay with taking Laiatu Latu. Then you have a second to address another position. So I really like that option. I think that the Bears, like when you just compare everything side by side, we talked about the offensive line and how Braxton Jones is, whether you like it or not, playing like a top, offensive tackle, wildly jumping his 5th round draft pick expectations. And I think it's disappointing that there's so many Bears fans that want to replace him and either make him a swing tackle or fight for his job with how well he's performed. Again, I could listen to trading back and taking Jackson Powers Johnson. I just don't believe that that's going to be the best case scenario with the other needs that we have. I like between Bates and Coleman Shelton. I think that that's a fine option. You have Coleman Shelton, who can help teach the offense, who's very familiar with Sean McVay's offense, help lead there. And then you have Ryan Bates, who Ryan Poles has been very high on these past couple of years and has wanted him. And we see Ryan Poles is very high on, Braxton Jones, and he's taken some other offensive linemen. Unfortunately, they weren't able to stay on our team, but they actually have stuck around on other teams and gotten re-signed. I believe Doug Kramer is still sticking around in the league. And then there was another defensive line or offensive lineman that didn't unfortunately make it with the Bears, but was able to make it. So I trust his decision in that. But I guess to overview that, I really don't think that offensive line is very important, and I honestly would be disappointed if we took a tackle at 9. Now, in the press conference or the questioning that Ryan Poles had, he did mention offensive tackle, edge rusher, and wide receiver, kind of all being the options that they were analyzing and looking at. I just don't think, even if we get Joe Alt, I think he's a great player, but I don't think that's the biggest need, because right now I would put him at a backup tackle, or either way, you're making one of your good tackles a backup, which I just don't think is the right move. Then you move on to wide receiver. Again, I think that, Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm sure, is going to be a great talent. I don't think that there's a trade that you could make work to trade up for him, because teams are also going to be competing for trading up for a quarterback. So the capital they're willing to give is going to be way more. And unfortunately, I don't see a world where he falls to us. So I'm kind of out on Marvin Harrison Jr. being a Bear, not as a football player. I think he's going to be a great football player. Neighbors and Odunze. I would be very happy with Neighbors and Odunze. Like, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be upset. I would be... I wouldn't be as happy as if we took an edge rusher, because at the end of the day, that's going to be a wide receiver 3. So in my, overview here, would you rather have on your football team a wide receiver 3 or an edge rusher 1? I believe that the number 1 edge rusher is going to be very important. Now, you can also talk about, what about the draft classes next year? And people are saying next year might be a good edge rusher class. I don't feel like we necessarily have enough information for that. We don't know if we're going to be in a pick position where we can get an edge rusher. And seemingly these wide receivers have just been, flying out the door. There's so many good receivers every year in the draft, and they typically don't go in the top 10. Like, I don't remember, I can't remember, Garrett Wilson might have snuck into the top 10, but Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nakua obviously goes late rounds, and that's just to name a few. I don't think in even probably the last 3 or 4 years anyone can name an edge rusher that went in the third round or later that is making an impact in the NFL right now. There isn't a lot of them, and that you can find those out of wide receivers and edge rushers. And at the end of the day, we do still have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. I think he should be signed to an extension. And we haven't really gotten to see what Tyler Scott can be. In the worst case scenario, if you have to keep Tyler Scott, I don't think that's a horrible scenario because we haven't really gotten to see much of him. And he does kind of fit that, slimmer, faster, deep threat ability guy, or even, just catching a quick pass and making a move with it. Kind of diversifying, I guess, because you have Keenan Allen, who's a little bit bigger, has a massive catch radius, can run great routes. You have DJ Moore, who's kind of an all-around talent. You could have Tyler Scott be a deep threat weapon, and that, honestly, I wouldn't really be very upset with that. Also, if you've watched any of my other Bears videos, you've seen that I am very high on, if we take Caleb Williams, taking Brendan Rice. I think the idea of, in the third or maybe even fourth round, being able to get Caleb Williams, one of his best friends, one of his favorite targets in college, through college, who also happens to be 6'4", and Jerry Rice's son. The fact that you can get him in the third or fourth round just is a no-brainer to me. Now, I do understand where some people might be disappointed. Okay, Jerry, well, what if we take an edge rusher in the first round, and then in the third round, Brendan Rice is gone? What are you going to do? I still think this is a fairly deep receiver class. So I think you can get somebody, and if you look at people like, everybody likes to do the comparison to Patrick Mahomes, but any good quarterback, they're typically been able to elevate people, even if they're not looked at as an amazing receiver. So truly, if Caleb Williams is, a great quarterback, I think he's going to be able to elevate a wide receiver 3 that is going to be playing behind DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, because the corners and everybody that's going to, our wide receiver 3 in certain packages might have a linebacker on them or a safety or, just they're not going to be getting a lot of attention. So it's going to be very easy to flourish as a wide receiver 3. And you could look at that and go, yeah, so why don't we take Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors? And again, I understand that. I think that that's a great choice, and I would be happy with either of those guys. But I do think that edge rusher is more important, because Montez Sweat showed last year how important he was to kind of changing over this whole team. And we were like number 1 through the last 6 games in like 4 or 5 different defensive stats. I know it included fumble or interceptions, tackles for a loss. There was like a couple different stats where we were ranked number 1 through the last 6 games because of the Montez Sweat trade, combined with Matt Eberflus taking over play calling. And so that's going to be it for today. Like I said, comment down below what you think. I know I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing that my ranking is basically, I think we should take defensive line, then wide receiver, then offensive line. But can you give me a better reason, especially based on the statistics that I went over with you? Because if you're taking an offensive lineman at 9, it's most likely a tackle. And I pretty much already showed you that we don't need that help at tackle. So let me know what you disagree with down below. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day.